Webcasting from Southeast Kansas, I'm Jonathan Switzer, and this is the Roboblog Chronicles, episode number 7. The comments thread show for our previous episode will be up the middle of this week. I'm just trying to get things back on sort of an orderly, regular schedule in the wake of the little Sentinels episode thing I did, just totally mucking the days up. Anyway, today's show will be about the Sentinels again, specifically about a single instance in which the different versions of the Sentinels interact to create sort of an odd, a very odd difference, an odd discrepancy between the original TV series and the Sentinels itself and the different iterations of the Sentinels. You'll see what I mean in a second here. The particular case I'm thinking of here is the case of the Ark Angel, a ship that shows up in the Sentinels novels. It becomes the Sentinels' second flagship after the Farrago, the ship that the Sentinels arrived on, is destroyed over the planet Praxis. The Ark Angel is the ship that Jonathan Wolfe steals after he's accused of killing the Invid Regent, and takes back to the ruins of Praxis to rescue the Sentinels. It is described in the novels as an SDF-7 class ship, and about the only actual description you're given of it is that it is a dreadnought, which doesn't really mean much of anything in the grand scheme of things. Now, the SDF-7 class ship, you're given an image of this on the Sentinels DVD that comes with the Robotech Legacy Collection Box 3 and also the big blue Protoculture Edition box set. They provide images of the SDFs 3 through 8, the SDF-3 being the unique Zentradi-styled SDF-1-like ship from the Sentinels, and the SDFs 4 through 7 being ships from the new generation. The 4, of course, is the big Izumo carrier that you see at the end of the New Generation TV series. It appears as the SDF-4 again in the Shadow Chronicles. It's Reinhardt's flagship. And then 5, 6, and 7 are smaller ships that appear throughout the New Generation. The 7 being the smallest. In fact, the so-called SDF-7 is this class of ship right here, the Horizon T, or Horizont, dropship, which, depending on whether you're following the RPG or the statistics from Robotech.com, crews about 4 to 7 people. It's only got room for one Veritech Alpha fighter underneath it, with a beta in the back, and it's got 2 containers that carry, I think it says up to 96 Cyclone Riders. I'm not sure exactly what Robotech.com says, but basically it's a small-scale crew transport. And this is the kind of ship that the Sentinels novels, if you compare what the Sentinels novels say with what the Robotech to the Sentinels line art tells you, this is the kind of ship that they are telling you the Sentinels are tooling around the galaxy in. Here are the wall trips dutifully drawing that particular class of ship as the SDF-7. Now, in the comics, that's not the Archangel. In the novels, they give the name the Archangel for the first time while the Sentinels are on Hadon 4. That's when it seems to be that, you know, McKinney decided, yes, we're going to call this the Archangel. That's what the Sentinels are going to call this ship. After the liberation of Hadon 4 in the comics, the Sentinels are given a new ship. This ship right here on this cover. This, in the comics, is the Archangel, a much larger ship. A ship much more befitting being the Sentinels' flagship. It is a Hadonite vessel. That's what the Hadonite technology looks like in the Sentinels comic books. And I find it to be the sweetest irony that in Robotech the Shadow Chronicles, when Vince Grant gets to Space Station Liberty in order to get a ship to escape from the Hadenite fleet, what ship does he get? He gets a big colony vessel, not quite finished, that is named the Ark Angel. In the Sentinels comic books, Archangel, Hadenite vessel. In where we take the Shadow Chronicles, Archangel, anti-Hadenite vessel. I just think that irony is really, really cute. Now, moving on to another interesting bit of Sentinels, Shadow Chronicles discussion. One of my problems with the Sentinels is the fact that, unlike the other Robotech generations, the Sentinels doesn't spend a lot of time on the characters who are of that generation. In the Macross Saga, there's a lot of focus on the young generation. You know, the young fighter pilots. You know, Rick, Max, Ben, you know, and then the young members of the bridge crew. They are really the core focus of the show. The Southern Cross, the 15th Squadron, is the real focus of that show. In the new generation, the young people living on Earth in the Indrid-occupied era are the focus of the show. But in the Sentinels, the real focus is on the older generation. Rick, Lisa, Max, Miria, you know, Dr. Lang, Jonathan Wolfe, all of these guys. Not the generation that includes Jack Baker and Karen Penn. In fact, they are, aside from little tiny Scott Bernard, you know, the only members of the young generation who are, you know, given names, given real roles to play in the Sentinels. And I was thinking about this, and thinking about how different the Shadow Chronicles is by comparison. Mind you, by the end of the Shadow Chronicles, you've only got, you know, really 2 members of that generation left. But I was thinking about the fighter pilots of the Shadow Chronicles, the ones who are in the Expeditionary Force fleet that arrives over Indrid-occupied Earth. And I realized that the 4 fighter pilots are actually just sort of watered-down retreads of the Macross Saga characters. Think about it. Commander Taylor is basically a poor man's Roy Fokker, you know, and given no real role to play other than to be the older authority figure fighter pilot who gets killed in action. And then you've got Marcus Rush, who is, you know, the sort of whiny, emotional fighter pilot, you know, main guy. Rick Hunter. Alex Romero, of course, is Ben Dixon, the comic relief who gets killed off after the you know, heroic older fighter pilot. And then Maya Sterling is sort of synthesis of Max Sterling, her father, and to some degree, I would say, sort of Lisa Hayes, since she becomes sort of the strong-willed love interest character. And the Shadow Chronicles does a lot of things like that in regards to, you know, aping bits and pieces of Macross and trying to gloss them into the Mospeada style, New Generation style setting, you know, with bringing back the Skull Squadron, bringing back the Wolf Squadron, and that neat little scene at the beginning where, as Marcus is getting the cola, Alex is looking at Maya Sterling's butt, you know, in a replay of Roy Fokker looking at Min-May's rear end in Booby Trap as Rick gets the cola. But, you know, it was kind of a sad realization to hit that these characters are so closely patterned after the Macross Saga characters, even if it is, you know, kind of a shallow thing, especially considering, you know, at least one of those characters is just sort of a shallow presence. Anyway, so that's it for today, and like I said, we'll be back midweek to discuss the comments thread. Captain JLS, signing off.